So I looked at a house and I'm thinking of making an offer. However, I have some questions. Is there a mandatory property owners association? Is there a fee for that association? Is the house on sewer or septic system? Is there an internet provider to this house? Cable TV, fire protection, garbage pickup. Has the roof ever been replaced? Has there ever been termites? What about water intrusion, mold, foundation issues? Has the seller ever made an insurance claim on this property? Has there ever been a death in this house? And if so, does the seller have to disclose this fact? How do I find out these answers to these important questions? That's what we're going to talk about today. My name is Eric Hutchinson. I'm the principal broker and owner of Hutchinson Realty. Welcome to episode 8 of Real Estate Talk for Northwest Arkansas. I have my usual real estate colleagues with me today. Hey friends, why don't we go around and introduce ourselves?
Hey everyone, my name is Cole Eady. I'm a realtor here with Hutchinson Realty. I've been a realtor for almost a year now, and me and my wife have lived in Northwest Arkansas for a little over 5 years now.
Hey Cole.
Hi, my name is Sandy Wellesley, and I'm an executive broker here at Hutchinson Realty. I've lived in Northwest Arkansas for 23 years.
Hey, Sandy. So glad you guys joined me today. So we've got some great topics to talk about. But before we do that, our weatherman Cole over here is going to tell us about the current state of our inventory. So give us some inventory statistics.
Thank you so much, Eric. So we will start with Fayetteville. Fayetteville right now has 197 homes for sale. 85 are new and 112 are resale. Springdale has 123 homes for sale. 27 are new and 96 are resale. The median list price is $465,000 and the price per square foot is $193. For Rogers, currently there's 122 homes for sale. 31 are new. 91 are resale. The median list price is $535,000 and the price per square foot is $217. Bentonville currently has 179 homes for sale. 79 are new and 100 are resale. The median list price is $501,000 and the price per square foot is $209. And then Bella Vista, there is 175 homes for sale. 104 are new and 71 are resale. The median list price is $404,000 and the price per square foot is $201. And with all 5 towns in Northwest Arkansas, there are currently 796 homes for sale. 326 are new and 470 are resale. The median list price is $465,000 and the price per square foot is $207.
Thanks, Cole.
Thank you.
So our inventory is still going down, even just in a week. I mean, I expected we'd have some. The weather's been really nice, and I kept expecting us to have some more houses come on the market. But last week we had 1,406. We got 1,370 in Benton and Washington counties, and then last week we had 817, and now we've only got 796 in our 5 largest towns. And so our inventories keep going down. So, Sandy, why don't you give us some interest rates news here today?
Okay, these are the rates as of today, and they are from one of our local banks here in the area. Conventional 30-year fixed, 6.5%. Conventional 15-year fixed is available at 6.25%. FHA 30-year fixed is available at 6.375%, and a VA 30-year fixed is available at 6.5%.
So the government loans 6.5%, but the conventional up there at 7% now. And as we talked about before the podcast started, and of course, depending on when you listen to this, no telling what's happened since since we've talked. But a bank went under. Yesterday. And so that's number 3 or number 4 this year that has gone under.
Right.
And
yes.
so that is, I mean, it's discouraging. It's also a little bit worrisome. And so our stock market and things have gone down just in 24 hours after that's happened. And so anyway, it's always a little bit scary, a little bit wondering what's going to happen. And that always comes into play in real estate. So
Right.
anyway. be interesting to see what happens in the future. So anyway, let's get into our topics today. We got some really interesting topics. I brought up some questions, and you guys know whenever you show houses, these questions come up quite often. So let me go to you, Sandy, and just ask you. So when you're showing property and your buyer starts asking you some of these questions, where do you tell them they should go, should look? How do you get this information?
I always tell them that we need to get the seller's property disclosure. That is the property disclosure is filled out by the seller, and basically that is a statement of the state of the home, the anything that's happened with the house, anything informational that you need to know is on that disclosure form. So
yeah, I think it's something that a lot of people. I mean, I've had offers come in as a listing agent. I'll see an offer come in, and they hadn't seen the disclosure, and I've posted the disclosure on the multiple listing service from the seller, and it's whatever it is, 14, 15 pages long, and they haven't looked at it yet. And I'm like, really? It's like, you didn't want to know some of the facts about the property? I mean, that's kind of important. Did you look at a disclosure whenever you bought? Now, your house was brand new, and so there probably wasn't a lot to disclose. But
yes, sir. They sent me and my wife a disclosure, but wasn't too much on, just basically saying that the property was in good condition from what they knew of and all that. But we still had a home inspector look at it just to make sure and everything was in order and it was good.
Does your subdivision have a property owner association that you pay every year?
Yes, sir.
Did you know about it before you bought the house?
Yes, sir. And I asked questions about it because I never heard of that before, because back home we didn't have that. But I actually enjoy it. I mean, I know it may not be fun to pay it, but I think it helps the value of our neighborhood. I think it's a good thing, long term especially.
Right. I think it's good to ask questions. I think being curious about the property that you're going to spend $300,000 or $400,000 on is always important for us to ask questions about. And so that seller's disclosure. Now, Sandy, is it required by law? So is there a seller's disclosure on every property?
there's not. It's not required by law. It's not required by law. I think it's always good if a seller has been living in the home and has the opportunity to actually fill one out to go ahead and do it. You may as well. But there are instances where maybe it's not the best idea for the seller to fill one out. So
yeah, when would that be? Give me an example.
I think a really good example is if you perhaps have inherited the property, maybe your parents lived there and you inherited it, and now they're asking you questions about the property. You know, you're filling out this whole form. I think if you have an heir that fills it out and they do their best and they actually put unknown perhaps when it right. really is unknown, then I think that's great. If you truly have no information about the property whatsoever, maybe it's best to not do that.
Yeah, so. I think that if they really don't know, and I think we talked about this earlier as well before we went live, but if it's a bank-owned property, the bank doesn't fill out a seller's disclosure. And if it's been a foreclosure, they haven't lived in the home. They don't know the history of the home. They're just like, we don't know the home. You buy a HUD house, no disclosure, and it's not a law. You don't have to. So if the seller is a heir or a bank, or for whatever reason they don't know, and it could be a vacation home, and maybe they only spent one season in this house and they know absolutely nothing else. You know, again, there could be reasons why they would not want to fill it out. Now, we mentioned this earlier, Cole. What would be a reason a buyer would not want to ask for a seller's disclosure? Do you remember?
Basically, the buyer would, if they didn't want to ask for a seller's property disclosure, they would, I guess they would want to, purchase the property as is. Basically, they'd want to get a home inspection.
Who would want to buy a property as is?
An investor.
Yeah,
because the investor wouldn't want to know because they're trying to, make a quick buck out of it.
So you see these shows, and we talked about it last time, these shows where they come in and they just literally gut the house and they flip it or whatever they're going to do to it. They don't want to know anything about it because if they know, they need to disclose that. So let's talk about so we're realtors, and the people that are listening may not be realtors. And so let's let them know what realtors are required to disclose, because we are required to disclose things. And so, Sandy, I'm going to go to you because you are an ex teacher for real estate. So what is a realtor required? In fact, I've even written down for you the law and some of the things there. Why don't you either read a portion of that, or just let the audience know what's a realtor's responsibility to disclose?
As a realtor, we're supposed to disclose any material fact that would affect the value of the property or whether that buyer might actually purchase the property. If I know something, I have to say it out loud. So I had a friend one time who was listing a home, and she said, we filling out the disclosure, which, first of all, as realtors, we do not fill out this form for you. That is for you to fill out personally. If you ask a question, I'm going to give you the honest answer or tell you I can't answer that for you. But she said, I'm filling out it. They asked if there had been any leaks. And, we had a leak under our kitchen sink, but we fixed it. Do I need to put that on there? And I said, yeah, you do need to put that on there, because here's the thing. If you don't put it on there, now I know. And I have to tell that there was a leak under the kitchen sink that I'm aware of. So
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So also earlier we had talked about, so on page 2 of the seller, there's 14 pages on this current seller's disclosure. And on the very bottom of page 2, it says, to your knowledge, in what school district is the property located? So if you've got kids, you probably care about that item. And there could be a school literally across the street from there, and that may be why you're buying this house. So, Sandy, you had a story that you said that a buyer bought a house and then found out something that wasn't correct.
Right. This is one of the situations that I was talking about earlier, where the heir to a property was he was really trying very hard to fill out the property disclosure. And the neighbor drove up and he asked the neighbor, hey, what school district do your kids go to? And I can't remember what school district it was, but whatever it was, he put that in. A buyer came in and bought the property, largely in part because it was in that school district, and then come to find out the home was not in that school district. The neighbor was a teacher for the district, and that's where her kids went to school. And the buyers moved in, discovered that they were indeed in the wrong school district, and immediately had to put the home back on the market, because that's not something the school district is not going to redraw their lines to make it better for you.
That's
so
right.
They had to sell the house. It was
Right.
really, and everyone was trying they were earnest. They were trying very hard to do what they needed to do. And yet here we are. So.
Right. So 2 things. One, seller needs to make sure they've got accurate information and make sure that they're giving accurate information. And number 2, if you're the buyer and you're buying this particular house, it's a really big reason is the school district. You probably should call the school district to make sure that house, because if the school is at capacity, and every school has a capacity, they can't go over so many students in that school. And I know that at our schools, we're in a high growth area. There are schools that are at capacity, and they will literally ship kids from one school district to the other because of the capacity of the requirements of the school district. So you need to make sure that's a really big thing. But most definitely, you need to be looking at that seller's disclosure to see what school district that you're going into. There's so many things that, and I'm going to try to skip around a little bit, but there are so many things that can be and should be disclosed on this. Also, whether or not there's a septic system, whether or not it's on sewer or a septic system, that's a big deal. Some people do not want to be on a septic system. They don't want a tank. They don't want a problem. They want sewer. And so you need to find out. I live in Bella Vista, and I know a lot of our agents live here, and that's a common thing in Bella Vista. There's not that much sewer. There are some on the east side, but most of the houses have a septic system. if you're a buyer, you want to know, and you want to know what size septic system, because that could impact if you've got 3 kids, whether or not it's a 2-bedroom, a 3-bedroom, or a 4-bedroom septic system. So that's also on there, and whether or not the house has internet. Is internet very important in today's society, Cole?
Yes, it is.
So one of the first things buyers say, hey, I work from home. I work for Walmart. I work for wherever, and I work out of my house. Well, you need internet for that. So is there an internet provider? Now, Elon Musk has Starlink, which is available. If there is no internet, you can actually get satellite, but sometimes that's not even available. And so really important, but again, that's on the seller's disclosure, whether or not there's water, whether or not there's a well, whether it's natural gas, whether or not there's garbage pickup. Believe it or not, there are very rural areas that don't have garbage pickup. That means the owner has to take their garbage to the landfill and dump it themselves, and that's something that ought to be disclosed. So I want to go back real quickly, though, is that talk about material facts. Sandy, you covered it just a little bit, but let me just make this really simple. Anything that has to do with the house, if the realtor knows about it, they need to disclose it. And I'm going to read you this. I'm going to read this law. This is the law. This is Arkansas law. It says to disclose to the client material facts of the transaction that the licensee is aware of or should be aware of in the exercise of reasonable skill and care that are not confidential information. So I'm going to stop there for just a second. So as realtors, we have a obligation to disclose what we know, and also an obligation we should know some things. Like I live in Bella Vista. I know that septic systems are a very common thing here, and I should know that. And if a buyer comes here from California or from a different state, from a long ways away, and they come here and they just expect everything's on sewer, well, I should disclose that because I know that. And that's something that I should disclose in exercising reasonable skill. So that's really important. So the Arkansas Real Estate Commission that governs realtors say, this is their regulation 10.6, a licensee shall exert reasonable efforts to ascertain those facts which are material to the value or desirability of every property. So we've got an obligation to do a little bit of research. Now it does say in there, it kind of gives us a little bit of an out. It says the licensee will be informed about its condition and thus be able to avoid intentional or neglect misrepresentation. But it does say, however, we shall not be obligated to discover latent defects in the property. In other words, we're not home inspectors. And so I don't, there's no way for me to know if there's something hiding behind the wall. And I'm not a foundation expert. I may see a crack, but I don't know if it's a foundation. But things that we do know and that we should know, those are things that we have to disclose. So really interesting things. So I want to move it over a little bit. So Sandy, turn over to that page 4 and look at some of those questions on that first page. Is there anything that jumps out to you that if you were a buyer, you would absolutely want to know?
Absolutely. Number 4, to your knowledge, has any person or entity ever refused to complete the purchase of the property because of an actual or alleged problem with the condition of the property? For a seller, that's tough. I mean, really, let's say your home has gone under contract and there was a home inspection and something was found, and you as a seller don't necessarily think that was a
big deal.
Yeah, a justifiable reason to terminate the contract, and yet the buyer did that. You have to put that on you have to answer yes to that. And there's a place on the disclosure where if you answer yes to anything, you can go and explain it, and that's your chance as the seller to say, here's what happened. But yes, you do have to disclose that. So.
And if you're the seller and you've already filled out a seller's disclosure, and then this is talking about a transaction that has been canceled because of a home inspection, it's up to the seller to update the seller's disclosure. So they had put, nope, no one's ever done that. But then they get a contract, a home inspection happens, and then the home inspector gets up in the attic and they find that there's a leak that you didn't know about. You now have to disclose that. Even if you fix it, you still have to disclose that was an item.
That was the reason. And here's the other point, Eric, is let's say you're the realtor that has that home listed and the contract fell out and the seller refuses to change the disclosure. Guess what? As realtors, we have to disclose that fell out. So
Absolutely. And I've had that conversation with the seller before. Say, look, whether or not you put it on here, I have to disclose it. And I end up putting it in the multiple listing service, and other realtors are going to know about it, and it's up to them to tell their clients. So anyway, we have an obligation there. So Cole, was there anything that stood out to you on any of the pages there? That first one, there's several items. Any questions that stand out to you if you were a buyer that you'd want to know?
Yes, sir. Number 10, to your knowledge, have there been any room additions, structural modifications, or other alterations made to the property since the property was originally constructed? Me as a buyer, I would definitely want to know, like, if there's been an extra bedroom or a game room or something added, or like, for example, if the house was a 6-bedroom house and had a septic system, but it was only able to, to function for a 3-bedroom house, I'd want to know that to make sure there's nothing wrong with the property itself.
Right. So I'm an educator, and I taught last year I was teaching, and I used an actual case that was tried by the Arkansas Real Estate Commission on a realtor who they had a 6-bedroom house, but it only had a 3-bedroom septic system. And the buyer came in and thought it was a 6-bedroom septic system, and it was only a 3-bedroom. And they turned around and tried to sell it after they bought the property and found out that it was only a 3-bedroom. Well, guess what? The previous realtor and his broker had to pay for that, which was around $12,000. And so, pretty big deal. And it could have all been avoided if he just would have disclosed that. So anyway, some really interesting things, but absolutely room additions needs to be disclosed by the seller. And that's a question a buyer should ask. Hey, was this room added on? A lot of times we get with that with sunrooms or decks they're a deck, but the seller wanted to make it part of the heated and cooled, so they put in some glass and some screen and a roof over it. And there's another question that says, were those items constructed to code? Because what if the seller goes, hey, I'm a handyman, I can build a sunroom. And so they get out there with their hammer and nail and they put in a sunroom. But if it wasn't up to code, again, has to be disclosed. So really interesting stuff. So I'm going to go over item number 21, and then you guys look and see if there's any other items on there that you would want to bring up. So item 21 says, to your knowledge, is there any facts, circumstances, or events on or around the property which, if known to a potential buyer, could adversely affect in a material manner the value or desirability of the property? That is what we call the catch-all phrase. In other words, if there's anything that could cause value to be decreased from this property, the seller has to disclose that. And the realtor has to disclose that. If we know that there is a noise. I think I mentioned earlier that there's a place in Bentonville that has a tornado warning siren, and it's in the middle of a subdivision. And it's, probably, gosh, I want to say it's got to be 50, 60 feet up in the air, but it's got a siren that is as big as this conference room table, and it is super, super loud. Well, what if a buyer, we don't have tornadoes that often, and what if the buyer just didn't notice it and moved into the property, and they've got a little baby that's in there sleeping, and all of a sudden their tornado warning goes off. Oh my gosh, it's going to shake the house. So again, that could adversely, also in that same area, and I'm not going to mention it here on the podcast, but is also not too far from a sewer treatment plant.
True story.
And when the wind blows the right direction, guess what we smell in that subdivision? And I've also chicken houses have been a part of that, where we, went out one day and no smell, but the next day the wind was blowing and we smelled chicken houses. Or, gosh, I hope you never have this event happen, but pig farms are even worse than chicken houses. And we do have some pig farms in Northwest Arkansas. So anyway, just saying, was there anything else, Cole, that you saw in there that might be of interest?
Well, I was going to mention number 20. To your knowledge, are there any neighborhood noise problems or other nuisance that would be not normal for this type of property? The reason I bring that up is because in my neighborhood, they're still building in my neighborhood, and the question that goes around for people like me and other of my neighbors, the potential buyers, they were like, hey, you live close to this high school, is it a big noise problem? And we're like, no, the only time you ever hear noise is during a game. But there's, buyers were concerned that, if they live by a high school or a football stadium, it's going to be noisy 24/7. That's just not the case.
Right. Well, that's good. How about you saying anything else there that you wanted to mention?
No, not really. I mean, I find I think the whole form is interesting. I like both. I like that it's kind of a biography of the house and
that's a good way to describe
everything that's happened. I like it.
So number 29 is one that I wanted to bring up. So many times the seller will say, gosh, there was a hailstorm and I need to find out whether or not, and so they have a roofer come out, yeah, you got damage to your roof, and they file an insurance claim. So anytime there's an insurance claim filed, that also needs to be disclosed. And it says 29 says, have you ever filed or made an insurance claim, warranty claim, or other claim concerning the property? Seller is aware that insurance claims against the property may affect the affordability of a buyer to obtain homeowners insurance. So I had a deal, because I've been around forever. I had a deal where the insurance company, they couldn't get insurance on this house because the previous owner had 3 claims in 12 months or something like that. And so insurance companies share information with each other. And so one insurance company checks out, they put in the address and it says, oh, there were 3 claims. That must be a lemon. So we're not going to insure that property. That's a big deal. Mm-hmm. And by the way, on our contracts, there's an item number, and I can't remember the exact number, but there's an item number that says that the buyer has 10 business days, 2 weeks, to determine whether the house is insurable or not. And it doesn't happen very often, but if it does, that's a big deal, and it could actually kill the deal. So Anyway.
I also like that follow-up, number 30, that says, have you ever received a settlement of a claim and not made repairs or improvements to the property? Like, did you get the insurance money and not repair it?
And that happens. That happens. Where seller goes, hey, the insurance company writes a check for $5,000 or $10,000 for a new roof, whatever. Seller goes, wow, I could spend this $10,000. I don't see any water coming into my roof, so it looks like I could just go out and buy me a new car. So I'm going to go do that, and then they don't do it. And that's a question. And again, that prevents the new owner sometimes from getting a new roof. So anyway, really interesting and good stuff. It's so important. So we're going to talk about a couple things that are a little bit uncomfortable. So nobody likes to talk about this, but it's certainly possible and has happened. And I've had some transactions where this was a problem. So let's talk about death a little bit. Death is a part of life, in case you didn't know. So what if someone dies in a house? Does the realtor and does the seller have to disclose that?
Yeah, I would say yes, Sarah, especially if it's a really bad death, like, for example, suicide or anything to that nature. Absolutely, you'd want to disclose that to a potential buyer. Like a natural cause of death, like somebody just died in their sleep or something like that. Maybe not, but if it was me, I would always still just disclose, because in my opinion, it's better to disclose than not to disclose.
Yeah. I think it's I like what you said there. I think it's better to disclose than not to disclose. If you know something, go ahead and disclose it. But I will tell you, so the Arkansas Realtor Association, they have legal counsel. And so our realtors are governed by 3 entities. They're governed by the National Association of Realtors, the Arkansas Realtor Association, the Realtor Association in general. You got national, state, and then local. And then you've got the law, and the law always supersedes everything. And then you've got your broker. Sometimes I make rules that my agents have to follow that other agents don't. And so those are the 3 entities that we have. But it's really important that we follow the law. And so the legal counsel for the Arkansas Realtor Association says that if it is a violent death, if it's suicide, murder, something like that, there's no question you as a realtor need to disclose that. Now, if I'm going to disclose it, the seller should put it on the seller's disclosure. They should disclose that because I'm going to have to disclose it. But if it's a natural cause, the person dies in their sleep from natural causes, we don't have to disclose it. But Cole, I would go with what you said, is that I think I would disclose it too. And we talked about that there are some people that feel that there may be spirits in the house, or there may be a feeling about the house that they don't like. Now, I'm going to tell this story because I think this is really interesting. So years ago, and I'm not advocating one way or the other here, but years ago, my father had a listing, and there was a realtor that showed the listing, and we had just listed it. My father had not put it in there that there had been a suicide in the garage, and it was, I think, the brother of the owner or something. It wasn't even the owners of the property, but anyway, someone had committed suicide in the garage, and there was a realtor showing the house. Now, the house had been completely remodeled, redone. I mean, there was no evidence there at all. And the realtor called. I picked up the phone, and she goes, "Hey, Eric, my buyer wants to know if there was someone that was sick in this property, or if there was something that happened. She's got a really bad feeling." And I was like, oh, I could hear the old Twilight,
Wow.
doo-doo-doo-doo, the whole music, going on in my head. I was like, well, as a matter of fact, there was a suicide in the garage. She was like, okay, we're out of here. And
Yeah.
so, but
Yeah.
I was just like, wow, a buyer had a feeling.
Yes.
And that, and so, again, I don't pretend to know everything. And so some people may have radar that I don't have, but I just thought that was interesting. So it's always better to disclose that. It's better that you disclose it and that it's not found out later by someone else.
Well, and that's the thing. If you don't tell it, then the neighbors are going to tell it. So they'll come over the next morning after the buyer moves in with a basket of muffins and welcome them, and then they will tell them everything bad that ever happened in that home. So
Yep.
Anyway.
So interesting topic, interesting things. Well, we need to wrap up here, but last thing. So they added this last year. I think it was last year. So at the very back, page 11, there's a disclosure acknowledgement. And it basically is a disclaimer, and we have another form that's a disclaimer. It's very similar to this, that it basically goes over information that buyers may not automatically think of. Now, nobody likes to think about sexual offenders and potential danger for their children, but I will tell you that it's a fact. And if you go to this website that's on this page, it actually shows you where all the registered sex offenders are. And if you're a buyer and you've got kids and you say, you know what, I don't want to be a door or two doors down from a sex offender. And so you might want to check out that website. That's another great thing about this seller's disclosure form, is that it goes over that website where you can go and check that for yourself. Also, FEMA, which is a organization that can tell you whether or not your house is in a flood zone or not. And guys, that's a real thing. There are subdivisions that are literally in a flood zone, and it's really dangerous. I mean, it can be dangerous where the rains come in and flood gets into your. They're over in Cave Springs, by the way. So there are actually there's a whole subdivision over there that when it rains hard, the river floods and comes right. I've got a friend that has a basement, and he literally, his heating and air conditioning system is put. It's about 15 feet up in the air attached to the house because the waters come up so high. It actually the waters flow through his basement. He's got like a little garage door opens up and it flows right through. He's got a river through his basement, and that's just part of the property. Well, guess what? If you're a buyer over that home, you probably want to know if that's going to be a thing, and it is a thing. So anyway, so really a good information for buyers that are doing that. So is there anything else that you guys want to bring up, or anything about the disclosure? Go ahead.
Thank you, Eric. I just wanted to bring up, when a potential client uses one of us here at Hutchinson Realty, it's like I was saying earlier, it's better to disclose than not to disclose. And we're their, like, their compass, I guess you can say. We're their information, and it's our job to give them the most accurate and best information we possibly can. We obviously we don't know everything, but if we do know something, here we're going to definitely tell our clients, the right information. So that's why I became a realtor, because I want to know, I want somebody helping me along the way, because this is the biggest purchase, of many people's lives, and it's better for them to know stuff going in than not know, and them come back to us like, hey, why did you not tell us about this property, or why did you not tell us, that this foundation was an issue. So it's better to tell than not to tell.
Absolutely. Thanks, Cole. Sandy, you got anything else? All right. Well, hey, guys, thank you so much for listening today. Hey, if you are listening and you think that you're ready to sell your home or you're looking to buy a home, we've got 23 experienced agents here at Hutchinson Realty. We would all love to help you through your next real estate transaction. You can always reach out to us at info@hutchrealty.com. You can go to our website at hutchrealty.com, where you can view every listing in Northwest Arkansas, get a free home evaluation, and you can see all 23 of our agents' profiles. If you want to put a picture to a voice to Sandy or to Cole, you can always go to our website and look up their biography, and it tells all about them. So anyway, feel free to visit that. Thank you so much for listening. If you like this podcast, don't forget to leave us a positive review. Come back next week when we talk more about Northwest Arkansas real estate. See you next time.